We have started a new podcast, rather a YouTube channel called The Jeff and Matt Show, where Jeff and I discuss politics, very, I think, timely for this political season and all the ramifications thereof. Has some to do with religion, has some to do with just about every subject. He and I can really get on, talk about different things. We disagree from very different points of view, but you'll see that, and I want to feature that in this week's episodes of In Layman's Terms. This is Matthew Garnett. Welcome to In Layman's Terms.
I think that it's not going to vary much from Election Day. I think it's going to be pretty solid. There's going to be a couple of states out there. I think there's a pretty good cross-section that voted early this time.
I have an evil plan to save the world for every man, and I think it's better than the way it's been.
So, like I said, we're featuring the Jeff and Matt Show. This is a crass marketing tactic for me to get some of you ILT in layman's terms folks over to look at the Jeff and Matt Show on YouTube. You can just go on YouTube and search the Jeff and Matt Show, and it should pop right up. We've got several episodes talking about all kinds of political topics, very apropos for this election season, and we just talked about what we think is going to happen in the election. You can agree, disagree, whatever. He and I obviously clearly disagree on some of this stuff, but it's food for thought. I think Jeff is a sharp individual, very up to date and informed on the topics of the day, as am I when it comes to political stuff. And so we're going to leave kind of our normal format where we might critique a sermon or talk about some cultural things. We're going to have our buddy Nathan Rennie coming up next week. He and I just had a great interview on critical theory that I think those of you that understand this will really appreciate, and those of you who don't understand it should come to appreciate. This is something you should get boned up on. But for this week, I want to introduce you to the Jeff and Matt Show, and send some of you folks over there. I've posted one of our discussions on the ILT YouTube, but I want to send some of you others who are interested in a political discussion from two different points of view over to the Jeff and Matt Show. But before we get to all that, let me make sure I send you to the inlaymansterms.org website, where we are now raising money for the Men of Steel project, where what our hope is to start a truck driving school for former inmates. And to get started with that, we need some professional help. In more ways than one, we need some professional help around here at the In Layman's Terms podcast, but this is one we definitely need some professional help with, because we've got to I have no idea how to get any of this kind of thing started. I think it's a great idea. I think it would be incredibly helpful, in an innovative way, an example that might take off in several major cities around the country, where we can reduce the recidivism rate among folks coming out of prison. We could give them a career, possibly something that they could start their own business with. This is something I think could be incredibly positive, but we've got to have some funding for it to get the expertise we need to get off the ground right, so we don't waste a bunch of money trying to get this thing started when we don't know what we're doing. So please go to inlaymanstermsradio.org and donate to the Men of Steel project. And in the meantime, please enjoy our podcast this week, which again is a little bit different, featuring the Jeff and Matt Show. Here we go. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about was the Senate. Where do you think the Senate's going to go at the end of the day? And I guess this again kind of cuts against my opening salvo, is what's the point of trying to make predictions on this? But this is kind of fun for us to. I guess this is what political pundits do. So we've kind of thrown ourselves into that fray of people of political pundits, albeit amateur. Even though I think we've got to, they should put us on CNN or something, because I think we've got a better beat on things than just about anybody. But anyway, so where do you think the Senate's going to go? What races are you watching? Do you think are going to be interesting? Big. Do you see any big surprises? And at the end of the day, where do you think it's going to end up?
Well, as you know, there's seven seats that are possibles anyway, or probables that could flip. Going to the Democrats. So I mean, we could go over each one of those, but I mean, everybody knows which ones they are. I really like the potential.
Sure.
I'd love to see a big surprise. I'd love to see Texas lose a senator or something like that. Maybe even go blue for this thing. That would just make it a landslide if that happened. And it's a possibility. I mean, that's
Sure.
one, right? I didn't take some. I actually put some notes together about this since I didn't want to be surprised. That was the one that I was.
You did some show prep. Show prep is not allowed here. No, I'm
Okay.
teasing. No, I did. No, I did show prep. I did too. I looked up all the races and was kind of trying to make book on what was going to happen, what wasn't. So just because, I mean, I know kind of the general ideas, but I wanted to see what the close races were and so on and so forth, and what could potentially happen. So go ahead, give us your prognostications here.
Out of the 7, I think Arizona is going to flip Democratic. I think Martha McSally is going to be out.
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to Mark Kelly getting in there. I mean, I think he's a good guy. It's his first real fray at politics, and his wife was congresswoman before, so he's been around it for a while, right? And I think he's done really well in it. Colorado, still kind of a toss-up. We'll see.
Right.
Iowa the same way. Maine, Montana, North Carolina. I'd love to see North Carolina flip. That would make a big difference. That's been a stronghold for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So out of those 7, all we need is really 3.
Right.
4 would be nice. All 7 would be great.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's kind of what I was looking at. Was my analysis is, you could very easily see an 8-seat swing. Just a flip it over.
Right.
So you got 54 to 46 right now. I could very very easily see a 54 to 46 Democrat, victory there.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting one. So any of those ones you mentioned, I think, have a good chance of being counted among the change. Of the ones that I think will definitely flip would be Maine. For sure, I think she'll lose there. That'll be. I think that's a pretty well assured thing at this point.
Yeah.
And what would be great, right, is if you see Lindsey Graham go down in South Carolina and Cornyn in Texas.
Yeah.
It's not a according to the data, the polls, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
No.
So if those couple of things happen, then that'll be pretty interesting to see how, because when you have situations like that, then politicians start talking about mandates, right? Then they start to say, oh well, look here, we flipped 8 seats in the Senate, we won the presidency, which I guess we could talk about in a second.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a mandate to do X, Y, Z. Right.
Yep.
They can start talking in those types of terms, which again, kind of going back to our original, our first few podcasts, would give them kind of the momentum to do stuff like in the filibuster, add justices to the Supreme Court. Which again, I think if they're going to go for that, they should go for it. They should add at least 8. Don't pussyfoot around with 4. Go ahead and go 8.
Yep.
And then,
if you're going to do it, you might as well do it. I
yeah, go big or go home, right? And then you can start talking about adding states like Puerto Rico and Washington D.C., Guam, whatever else you want to add in there. So and which ultimately, well, and then on top of that, I think a smarter move for them would be, if that were to happen, say a Cornyn got beat in Texas or Graham gets beat in South Carolina, unfortunately, I was looking at the Kentucky race. That would be a miracle if Cocaine Mitch got booted out of there. Yeah.
I really don't know why he's in on it anyway. The guy's a multimillionaire. His wife's a multimillionaire. He's just doing it because
Jeff, he wants to serve the people. He's a servant of the people.
Really?
You cynical person.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's doing it. I don't know why any of these guys do it. I know why. There are some of them that I hope I know why they're doing it. And on both sides for genuine reasons. I would hope that at least somebody, someplace up there, is in public service because they care about the public.
Right.
I think that type of person is few and far between these days. But anyway,
Mitch,
so anyway, back. What's
we
that?
We both live here by Kentucky, and Mitch's whole platform is, geez, look what I've done for you already. And the gal that's coming in, she doesn't have any experience, she doesn't have any contacts, and I'm going to be able to drag a whole bunch of money to Kentucky because that's what I've done, right? Well, states like California are paying a whole bunch of money into the federal government, and we're complaining about them being, poorly run states and poorly run cities and all these other things. But you got somebody that's actually stopping, but you kind of like that. You like to have minefields out there, so it makes it really difficult for anybody to do anything. But that's what he does. He keeps it all on his desk. But if there was a bill come through there for Kentucky to get a few $1 billion for revitalizing, I don't know, racehorses or something, I don't know. I'm sure it would pass. I'm sure he'd get that one, wouldn't he? And that's his big asset, over what's her name,
I can't remember her name, but you're right. Yeah, well, that's the thing is, it's just, and Kentucky tends to lean blue, generally speaking, even though, seems like the governorship seems to flip back and forth. Really because you've got that tri-state area down in, southeastern Indiana, southwestern Ohio, northeastern Kentucky, which, is a pretty, if you put it all that, you put Cincinnati, Louisville, and surrounding southeastern India, it's a pretty blue area down there. And then Kentucky is, once you get outside of Louisville and Lexington, you're lucky to find a human being. Otherwise,
pretty much.
I mean, yeah. So it's a pretty, otherwise pretty sparsely populated state. So they can flip back and forth, but at the same time, they're still going to lean blue. And I think McConnell retains that seat, but again, you've got definitely the North Carolina situation is really interesting, and that's got presidential, the national election ramifications, and then Graham is in danger, and for Graham and Cornyn, Cornyn I think was born a senator in Texas. I don't know how long he's been there, forever. But so to have just that, even the notion of having those in play, and the idea that one might get lost, that would be for that to be kind of in the mix of whatever, however it flips, which I'm pretty sure it will flip. If that were in the mix, then the Dems they're standing on some pretty solid ground to really make some moves. And if I were in their shoes, here's what I would do. If you wanted to secure, again, kind of the one party idea, I've been thinking about this a while, but you quash the filibuster, because even the Republicans talk about this, they flirt with this idea too. You quash that, and then what you do is you pass, some really strong, comprehensive immigration reform, right? Then now you can bring all of that Hispanic vote in that isn't there right now because we haven't been able to figure out how to deal with the undocumented immigrants living in the United States, and how to go forward with that sort of thing. That's something they could get done right away that wouldn't look like they're trying to fix the game, as it were. And then on top of that, that's just the compassionate thing to do, right?
Well, it's funny that you mention it that way, that you come out and say, well, that'll get the Hispanic vote in, but I've met and I know a lot of people that have come to the United States and overstayed their visas and all that type of thing, just because of the circles that I travel. And yeah, there's some Hispanic. Also, I've met Russians, Chinese, Filipino, from all over the place that would benefit from that. And most of these people are just living out their lives. When they talk about all these illegal aliens, if you want to call them that, I'm sure a large percent of them are Hispanic, but there's a great big number out there that are not Hispanic, that are living in their normal lives, and they get away with pretty much anything they want to because they blend in the crowd, so to speak.
Right, right. Well, and see, those are numbers I'm not aware of. I mean, the number you always hear is 11, 12 million, from Latin America, Mexico, South America, et cetera. That's about the number there. But do you have any idea what the number you're talking about other than that are here, however you want to call it, illegally, undocumented?
Yeah, I'm just talking about
get the Google.
Right? I mean, I get surprised once in a while that you would think that somebody might be undocumented or would even admit it. But if you're in the right circles and you're that kind of friend, I mean, you just know what's going on with their life, right? Or how long they've been there or something. You know what's going on. So, but there are quite a few.
Yeah.
I didn't look it up. I didn't look it up before this, but because I didn't know we were going to talk about immigration today. But
well, I didn't necessarily want to bring. Well, I mean, but what I think is, by all available data, if you were to pass something like that, where you were to just kind of like Reagan did in '86, where you just kind of grant general amnesty, you say, okay, let's just wipe the slate clean. We're going to grant you all citizenship, and we're going to start over again. You make that kind of move. Again, what you're looking at, again, by the data that I'm looking at, is that the overwhelming majority of those, whether they be, Mexican, South American, Latin American immigrants or other, the overwhelming majority of those are going to gravitate toward the Democratic Party. You're going to have an almost.
You way oversimplified that one. When Reagan did that, he didn't just grant everybody a bunch of citizenship. They came up with a path to citizenship for those people. And there was a lot of qualifications that went with that. Literally, you had to be in the country for years and be able to prove that you were in the country for 10 years. I mean, through documentation, be able to prove that you were in the country that long to even qualify for that program. And I think they'll do something similar. I mean, they're going to have to, because why have this sub-society going on that why don't we bring these people into the normal society and just get on with it, right? And as far as like the Dreamers, I mean, everybody pretty much agrees that the Dreamers are here. They've lived their whole life here as American citizens, as Americans, not citizens yet. But they've already lived their whole life here. They've been in our school systems. They're working. They have clean records. There's no, like MS-13 Dreamers or anything like that. Why not just get on with that kind of stuff rather than making it a political football,
Yeah, well, and that's right. But the concern is, a couple of things. So again, from more of a GOP perspective, the concern is, all right, we've done that before. We, the GOP, made that move, 20 some odd years ago, and it hasn't. It hasn't solved the problem of, okay, we've got borders, we've got to regulate who comes in and who comes out, and how we're going to integrate those people into, our culture and our way of life. And should we even, there are some that say that, we shouldn't be requiring people to learn English or what have you as they come in, and that's creating a disconnect, in the marketplace. So, one thing that you'll find in well-ordered societies, throughout history, is that they have a common trade language, whatever that may be. You're able to deal in the trade language, which in America is English. So if you don't speak English, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So that's something that
even when I applied for my Canadian residency, and that I had to go take an English test. Even as an American, I had to go take an English test to prove that I could speak, read, write, and understand English. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
That's what I'll.
Yeah, and I don't think that's such a.
But that's not the.
I don't think that's such a bad idea.
Is the real thing is even though they granted amnesty and they put all those qualifications on the amnesty, they really didn't change the way, like with their quota systems and all the other things that they've got. Because let's say from certain countries, and I'll pick on Mexico. You could live to be a ripe old man. If you applied for your opportunity to come here on a green card, you could be 20, 30 years deep before your number would ever come up, if it would ever come up. So there's no opportunity because there's only so many people that can go through the funnel. Where other countries, maybe that don't have as much immigration, it could maybe take a year or something. So that has to be looked at. And this is where I would agree with Trump is, and just like me with my Canadian alien registration, they're looking for people that go there on merit, right? So you have to have a reason to be there, either through school, through work, or whatever. They want you to be there for a reason. So it wasn't just, geez, I showed up and I take a test or something, take an English test, and I become almost Canadian. So I think we have to do.
Right. Well, and that's the thing in the United States. It seems like talk about the funnel. There's lots of people wanting to get in here, and we've really got a chokehold, a stranglehold on how many and how it is you can come in, and maybe that's time to expand that the bottom of that funnel a little bit and figure out how to allow people in, and if that's that if I were a Republican, that would be an agenda item, especially if I was a senator from a southern state that bordered Mexico, or a state like Florida, to take a guy like Rubio, that I'd be looking at. Okay, so let's look at how we can enhance immigration or make the process a little bit easier, so we don't have as much of the violation of our law. But I think again, if I were in the Democrat shoes, especially if we want a state like South Carolina or a Texas, and Graham was out or Cornyn was out, just for pure electoral purposes, just to secure more of the electorate, I would look at doing something like that. Because again, you could do something like that without freaking everybody out, right? Oh, of course we know the Dems are going to do something like this, right? This is what everybody expects. It's not a problem. But at the same time, I mean, maybe even more than states or courts or whatever else, that would, I think, for probably for our lifetimes, and we're not that far apart in age, you wouldn't. I don't think if something like that were to happen, if you were to grant a general amnesty, and we're able to get that through and grant it in such a way that it maybe wasn't even as difficult as Reagan's amnesty of '86. That I don't think you'd see another Republican in office or another Republican majority in either body of the Congress for a very, very long time. So, then you can kind of go from there.
Right.
So I mean that sort of. So we've got a lot at stake here. We've got that sort of thing. We've got Senate filibuster. The quote unquote court packing. The adding of states, all this stuff is being talked about, which we've covered in earlier episodes. So it'll be interesting to see what goes down. And again, I'm looking at, I think Cornyn will get through on 50-50 on Graham. Would not be surprised to see Graham go down. I think McConnell's in. I think Cornyn will get in, but Graham could go down. And then you're looking at, and then after all said and done, you're looking at a 6 to 8 seat flip in the Senate. That's what I'm looking at. Just doesn't seem. Yeah, I don't see anything. Maybe a five seat flip where it's a little tighter. If the fortunes really smile on the pubs, it could happen. But I think you're looking at a 6 to 8 seat flip with potentially a bombshell of a Graham or a Cornyn getting beat. So
really,
that's what I'm seeing.
Do that, but it's kind of overkill. It's all right though, because once you get rid of the filibuster, then it's just we just have to be tied, and we'd have Kamala to be able to come in and break any tie. And the Republicans have already done it. They've already set all the precedents. It's basically whoever is in power at that point gets to do anything they want until the other group sit in the corner, because that's what's been happening, right? And I think America's used to that now. We've polarized to that point, and Just like some of us had to sit on the sidelines and just, kind of scream inside, going, "Oh, I can't believe they're pulling this one. I can't believe they're pulling that one." But
Right.
that's the law, and that's what we're going to go by. And like you said, if they go ahead and make the moves they need to, then the Republicans may never get a majority back again. I mean, it may be the one party.
Yeah. Right. Well, and so, right, I agree with you 100% on that. I think the Republicans could have done a lot more to avoid the situation that we're in now, where what's on the table are these type of, very institutionally altering propositions.
Right.
Again, no more Senate filibuster, add members of the court, add states, pass a comprehensive immigration reform, where we've got this broad and very accessible amnesty, where one party can secure power in a way that appears palatable to the majority of Americans, and doesn't really smell of, okay, well, we're really going down the path. But see, my biggest criticism of the Senate was instead of de-escalate, if the pubs wanted to de-escalate this thing, what they should have done is something like reinstate the filibuster for justices instead of taking advantage of it, right?
They could have.
With me, bro?
I mean, they would have been looked at more fairly at that point, right? And about a couple of weeks ago about the whole justice thing. Until the last 3 justices have been almost unanimously voted in. So it's kind of difficult now that they're so partisan, or at least the vote certainly is partisan, whether the judge is or not. But they're picked from a partisan list, and the people that get behind them are certainly partisan. So that's not what the judges are supposed to be doing. That's why I wasn't even worried about bringing another judge. Okay, they bring in Amy. I'm okay with that because she's going to follow the law.
Sure.
I'm more concerned about once the Dems get in, if you have the Congress and the Senate, that we go ahead and make some laws. Let's codify some of these things that need to be codified. Like, well, first of all, what you were talking about with immigration reform, with health care, with even some of the things that go along with trade, and that we could even codify some of that. You want to get rid of Roe? Well, let's get rid of it. Let's codify it, right? You want to get rid of some of the other things? Let's codify it. Let's get it over with. And that way, maybe not make it at least make it a law, maybe not an amendment, but maybe it's time even for another amendment. It's been quite a while since we've had one, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, I'm not sure how I would have done it, but the thing of it is that, it's this tit for tat thing. It's like, okay, you're going to do this, and then we're going to take it up another notch, and then you're going to do this, and we're going to take it up another notch. So again, for instance, the latest development is, again, Harry Reid abolished the filibuster for judicial appointments. And so what did the pubs do? Immediately when they got power, they started appointing tons of justices, along party line votes.
Sure.
They took advantage of that. And so I question whether or not that's the move. Again, when, as a partisan myself, I'm thinking, yeah, go get it, but what are we really encouraging here? What are we really driving toward? We're driving toward one party trying to seize absolute power. That's what the battle is, unfortunately. And so, and I don't know again, as a Republican, I have to admit, I'm not so sure that the Republicans aren't after one party power just as much as the Dems are. And I'm against the one party.
Yeah.
I like the two-party thing.
Like gridlock.
Love gridlock. See, because here, what I consider when I go to the polls, every time I go to the polls, is who can I put in there that isn't going to get anything done, that's going to cause gridlock and gum up the works and cause problems. That's the person I'm voting for. That's why Ted Cruz is my favorite politician, because that's what he does.
Yeah. My We're already talking about moving to Texas next year just so we can vote against Ted Cruz because we want to make sure he's got 2
well,
years.
right. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I mean, and again, that's the kind of ire a guy like Senator Cruz engenders, because if you're a person who wants to see government get a bunch of stuff done, you want to see him pass a bunch of this and that and the other thing, you want to see government real active and involved in your life, you don't like a guy like Senator Cruz because he's the one that trips all that up. But me on the other side, I'm like, again, that's kind of the definition of conservative, or at least part of it, I would think, is that to be a conservative means I don't want things to change. Don't change anything. Keep it the way it is. I don't, because every time you guys change something, I get priced out of my health insurance. That's kind of how I look at it.
So did you log into health.gov and check on your opportunity list for 2021? Today's the first day.
I haven't been on there because every time. So I've gone on there several times since. Let me think. Had to be 2014. What's that?
We're digressing a little bit, but today was the first day, so I did all my questionnaires and all that. Well, I did those the other day, but I logged on to see what my and everybody complains about. Geez, that state doesn't have any healthcare providers. Well, in my state of Ohio, with mine, I've got 60 that I can choose from.
Right.
Just absolutely shocked me. Many new ones this time. So probably a third of those are new compared to last time. But 60 different plans to choose from assorted providers. And I couldn't tell you how many providers there are. I can think of 5 or 6 off the top with different plans, but 60 different plans, 60 different price ranges, 60 different opportunities for how you want to have them cover you, from the basics all the way up to, really covering you. So it's out there.
Right.
It's available.
Yeah. Well, so I can't remember the last time I got on the, whatever they call it. But I've never been able to afford any of it. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is when I put all my information in there, then I just get endless telemarketing phone calls from folks that want to sell me health insurance I can't afford.
Oh.
That's just, that's been my experience. And again, that's anecdotal. And, I'm sure that there are people who've gone on there who've needed health insurance. Obviously there's several million. Mm-hmm. Anywhere, the numbers I've seen are anywhere from 15 to 20 million who are benefiting from the marketplace. But I am not one of them. And I'm one of those folks who got priced out of the market because, it took a few years. I want to say it was 2013, 2014, maybe it's 2015. Maybe it took that long. Where I went to the pharmacy one day. And this is completely anecdotal. There's no there's some data to back this particular anecdote up with people who are losing their doctors. Their premiums are increasing. Their deductibles are increasing. So I think there's some data out here to back up my story. But I just went down to the pharmacy to pick up my inhaler because I'm an asthmatic. And before that particular year, I didn't pay anything. I just go in there but this year I went in there. They said, okay, $50, please. And I'm like, $50? Okay. All right. So I paid the $50. And I said, well, how much is the whole thing if I just pay cash? And they're like, $60. Okay. So then I called up my company and I'm like, what's going on? And we kind of hashed out the numbers and they just said, this is the health plan you're on now. And I'm like, well, when can I drop this? And they're like, you can't. You have to hang on to it until you have so I ended up having to, which is not a problem. I just switched trucking companies. Mm-hmm. So I could get out of my health care because it was, it's too expensive. Couldn't afford it.
Right.
Yeah. So, so it's a mess. It's definitely a mess and I don't like how it is. I wish it was different. But at any rate, that one, if something can be done, again, like we talked about, I don't know, a few episodes ago, I like the idea of let's get the pre-existing condition folks out of the market and then let's go from there. I think that would help tremendously. But
subculture, you want to create a subculture of sick people that the government's going to take care of, but everybody else is healthy has to fend for themselves.
Yeah, well, no, that's not what I think would be a good idea. But what I'm trying to do is say, okay, well, what's causing the premiums to rise and the deductibles to rise and that sort of thing. And again, from what I'm seeing, it is the conundrum of trying to take care of folks with pre-existing conditions, and those people should be taken care of, in my opinion.
Yep.
We should figure out, that's something that, again, I'm socialist on very, very little, but that's one thing I'm fairly socialist on, because I don't know, that's a situation that I don't think something like the church can take care of. If you we've got some sick people in our church, and we've done tons and tons of fundraisers, and we're able to take care of like one person.
Mm-hmm.
We can't take care of all the people that are sick in our church.
Right.
We can take care of one. We can take care of one or two people in very, very modest ways. That's just something that's above our ability. So can we all get together and figure out how to take care of folks that are in that situation? That's something maybe that I'd be socialist on. And say, okay, all right, let's compromise. All right, you want to socialize, you want to completely socialize medicine. I don't want to completely socialize medicine, but what parts of it can we socialize? Let's socialize this part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
but you're dividing.
I don't know.
So the funny
What's
thing
that?
is, what happens if Biden wins, and then a few days later, whenever the ACA is up to the Supreme Court to strike it down, then Biden can't add the public option to the ACA. He'll have to do something different than whenever he takes office in January.
Yeah, well, I think that if something like that happens, and again, you've got a majority in the Senate, you get rid of the filibuster. That's something that I think they can take care of.
I'm talking about the Supreme Court case they've got now to try to strike down the ACA is going to be next week. It's going to start next week, and if they strike down the ACA completely, then Biden's going to end up with. I mean, there's no Trump care plan as far as I know. Nobody's ever seen it. So there's going to be no health care plan when Biden takes the oath of office on January 20th. What do we do then?
Right. Procedurally, I'm not sure how all that works. But that might put a sense of urgency on the Biden administration to go ahead and just make it all one payer. That would be, in my estimation, that would be the perfect impetus for a Senate that is majority run, again with a big hit like a Cornyn loss or a Graham loss. That would be boom, just do it. Yeah, we're getting rid of the filibuster. The House is going to put together a single payer system right away. I'm sure they've already got this in the wings. There's no question about it. They're ready to go on this. So they could do this within the first month if they wanted to, very easily. So yeah, it might be a little bit of rough going for a few weeks for folks, but I think they could get something in place very, very quickly if that's what the direction they wanted to go. And you could very easily have a one payer system by next spring. No problem. Yeah.
And all thanks to Trump. He wanted to get rid of the ACA, and he didn't have another plan.
Yeah.
Be able to
some of these things backfire. Some of these things backfire, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of political, big political firefight, and somebody lobs what looks like a pretty big bomb, and it hits, and then the other side responds, in kind and plus some.
Yeah.
So the weapons are there. So at any rate, all right. So that was good. I like these rabbit trails we go down, because this all kind of connects, right?
Somewhere, yeah.
It does. All right. So let's talk about the presidential race. Definitely, I'm going to be shocked if Biden wins. If Biden doesn't win, the Biden-Harris ticket doesn't win, I think that things will go pretty well for them until they get to Arizona, and then after that it'll be over. That's my prediction. I think Trump, if Trump doesn't retain Florida, I mean, it'll be an early night. If Biden comes up and wins Florida, then it'll be over. But I think
Or Texas.
What's that?
If Biden takes Texas.
Or Texas, but you got to think about how this all goes down. The biggest state to report the majority of their votes in is going to be Florida. So that's going to be, and that happens at 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. You're gonna have a real good idea about Florida by 8:30 Tuesday night.
You should have most of the East Coast out to Ohio by that time.
So you're gonna have Florida followed right behind that's gonna be Ohio.
Yeah. And DeWine says that we're going to be counting votes, all those early votes and everything else. They're pre-counting that stuff. I want to say they're pre-counting it already, but if they're not, then they'll pre-count it starting that morning, so they'll be able to report those immediately. And I'm just amazed at what they say, 91 million votes, and I'm sure more than that now have already been cast. And in 2016, there was only less than 130 million votes. So 2/3 has already been done. That's just absolutely amazing that the people got out to do it. And that's both sides. That's not just Dems or Republicans. That's both sides.
Right. Yeah, everybody seems to be very motivated. So I'll throw my wet blanket on top of that. I think we're going to have a very uneventful election day as far as voter turnout goes. Because I think what happened is everybody went out and voted early, one way or another.
I think
fairly certain that's what went on. And I mean, we might have a bit of a higher turnout than in 2016, but I'm wondering if we might have a higher turnout. Okay, fine, but I don't think we're going to see a bunch of people roll out on election day. It's everybody's done. So what do they say? What's the word? We've cannibalized election day numbers. It's just everybody's voted who's going to vote, except for maybe me and Jen, right? Who's going to vote on election day?
Well,
so
my voting is directly across the street from me, so I'll be able. I work at home, so I'll be able to tell you what my is on if it's going to be busy, because sometimes there's lines over there. You can always tell by the parking lot there at the church, how busy they are. That's how I usually decide, if I'm going to walk over there and vote, or what time of day I go over there. I wait till the line dies down, because early morning voting is usually a big thing over there. I mean, early. I want to say they open at 6 or 7. Pretty early.
Oh, wow.
Vote early before, So I'll let you know next week what happened there. Maybe even take some photos. I'll certainly be over there, some photos, see if any of the poll watchers show up. I want to get some pictures of those guys, with their with their flags.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a feeling the police are going to be pretty busy that day in different parts of the country trying to sort out who should be different places and not.
Right. Okay, so yeah, it's good. It's good you bring that up because again, I think we'll see a larger turnout. Sure. Okay. My prediction is that once that morning rush is over, because we're gonna, again, I took the day off, so we're gonna go over like 10:30, 11 to our place, and my guess is we're gonna get right in and out of there. It's not gonna be a problem. And that might be how it goes down. The other thing that that I worry about, I guess, is if we have an apparent Trump victory on election day. Are we going to get the results on election day? That'd be my first question. What do you think? Are we going to get the results on election day? Secondly, if we have an apparent Trump victory on election day, what's going to go on? And then, maybe we'll talk a couple other things. What's your thoughts on those conundrums?
If you would have asked me a week ago, I would have said there's probably a big opportunity for it to be an apparent Trump victory. But I think now that there's been so many Republicans vote early, that it's going to be probably pretty close to what if it shows up as a Trump victory, it's probably going to end up being a Trump victory. I think that there's a good mix of people that have already voted. It's not just Democrats out there voting or voting by mail because it's convenient or something like that. I think everybody is getting their opportunity, and I mean, I went into we have a pre-voting area here in Hamilton County, so we drove down there, and it was busy. It was a steady stream of cars. We waited in line in the car as we entered the parking lot area. We parked our car. There was plenty of parking. I mean, as a car would pull out, another car would pull in. And then you'd walk in. There was one other person ahead of us. We did all of our, ID and verification, got our ballots, did our voting, and we came out, and it was the same. And it was just a constant stream. So we've had I think there was probably days, especially the first day they opened for the early voting, that they had big lines over there, but we just went right in and right back as fast as it's like being on a ride at Six Flags or something like that. You just kept on moving, right? There was no holding.
Okay.
Up. That was good.
Right.
And I guess it's been a steady stream the whole time. And it was Trump, the Trump supporters had big tables just outside the 100-foot margin. They were screaming and yelling and everything. And, nobody didn't pay them any attention. Everybody went in and did their thing, and then they came back out. And they were handing out sample ballots to make sure that you knew how to mark your ballot once you got inside, those kind of things. And just like, I brought my own sample ballot. I printed it off on the, from the website and pre-marked it and researched to make sure I knew exactly who and what I was going to vote for. So that way I got there, I was in, and I was back out. No scratching my head.
Right.
You did that too. Biden says have a plan to vote, right? So you should make your plan before Tuesday and print out your sample ballot and already have it pre-marked. You and Jen should both do them privately if you want to, or together. It doesn't matter, but have them ready so that you're just in and out.
Yeah, no, I think we should be fine because we can vote straight party Republican here in Indiana. That's probably how it's going to happen.
Straight party Republican on yours?
Yeah, you can. In Indiana, you can, yeah.
Oh, they don't do that.
I usually don't vote straight party, but I end up voting for every Republican, just because that's how I've always voted. I maybe once I voted straight party, but I like the process of going through each individual race, because this is something I've done the research on, and I know what's going on, and then plus that the questions that are up, there's certain questions that are up that you may not be aware of. You may not understand how it's going to affect you or your state or whatever else, and you want to be aware of those sort of things. So when you vote straight party, most of the time, that's just your, I think you should be a little more informed than that. I think you should have to go down and look at the names and at least, challenge yourself to be able to say, okay, I know who I'm voting for and what I'm voting for and that sort of thing. So, but
so here for normal office, they put on whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, next to their name. But once you get past the, senators and that kind of, the normal offices like judges and sheriffs and everything else, they take all that off to know your person. So that's why you have in the same way with any referendums up, like we had a couple of referendums up for money for fire services and equipment and that type of thing. So you had to know, what that was about and how it was going to affect our property taxes.
Right. That's another big thing I think a lot of people neglect is they don't know what questions are on the ballot.
Right.
And they go in there and they see a question come up. They have no idea what it's about. So they have no idea how to vote on it. And so that's kind of a mess. But right. Yeah, I think you should know at least as best as you can, what you're voting for. But again, so you're fairly confident we're going to get a rock solid result on election day.
I think that it's not going to vary much from election day. I think it's going to be pretty solid. There's going to be a couple of states out there. I think that PA, they're not even going to start counting their early or mail-ins until after the polls close. So that'll be pretty slow.
Right.
But we should. I think there's a pretty good cross section of people. I could tell. You can always tell the Trump supporters. So there was lots of Trump supporters voting there when I was there. They were asked to remove their hat as they were walking in and all that kind of stuff because they want to break the rules. So those things, bumper stickers, all the other stuff, which is fine. So I know that they were there too. So I think it's pretty good cross section that voted early this time, especially with the Rona going on. So.
Right. Well, so all right. So now here's my question: is I'm not so sure this thing's going to be a blowout. That's where I'm at with the presidential race. The Senate thing, I think the Republicans have a major problem with the Senate.
I think
they're going to be in big trouble there. Mm-hmm. The national race, I'm not so sure now. I'm not so sure it's going to be a big blowout, and I think it's going to be close.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it could go either way. And I'm not so sure we're going to get the results on Election Day. And I'm not so sure how people are going to react if it appears that Trump holds serve on Florida, Ohio, Arizona, etc. And now we've got states like maybe even Michigan in play and Pennsylvania in play. And so I think this thing, whereas, it's obvious that Biden's going to win the popular vote. So we're going to have that whole screaming match again. Right. But I'm not sure this isn't going to be close. So what's your feel on it? Do you think Biden's going to win it comfortably, or do you think that it's going to be close?
So I looked at the analysis they come up on CNN. So I watch Fox, I watch CNN, I watch a lot of foreign news. Listen to NPR, so I try to get a bit rounded with things.
Right.
When they were showing all the different scenarios, and they've gone through it to the nth degree, there's a few different scenarios where Trump wins. I give you that, and there's several different scenarios that Biden wins. There's scenarios that it's like, to me, it's probably like a 90-10 Biden versus Trump. I think Trump could still pull it out, but things would just have to fall exactly. And it happened that way in 2016 anyway. Things had to fall exactly the right place. Like Michigan, they only separated Michigan by 10,000 votes or something ridiculously small.
Right.
So something like that would have to happen, or he would have to complain about the voting, like they just did with Texas, where they want to throw out the drive-through votes, 100 and some thousand drive-through votes because they're doing drive-through, and it wasn't, I don't know how it was set up or whatever, but they already had it set up that that's what they wanted to do because of the coronavirus. But now the Trump lawyers have tried to get those votes thrown out. But all this early wrangling they've got about trying to throw out votes and suppress and all that, it may hurt them in the long run, just like some of the other underhanded stuff that they've done, right? It's just, it eventually comes back. Karma's pretty rough on that kind of stuff, When let's say you throw out those 120,000 or 150,000 votes for drive-ins, and you find out later that 80% of them were Trump supporters, or something like that, because they prefer to drive through. So obviously they don't like to get out of their pickup trucks very often. So.
Right. Well, and again, even the GOP pundits, that they look at it exactly the way you look at it. That a Republican to win the presidency, they've got a very, very narrow path. Whereas the Dem candidate doesn't have a narrow path, and I guess I don't track with that logic, because the Dem has the same path that the Republican has. You've got to win one of those Rust Belt states, or you've got to win again. So the three states in play again: Florida, Ohio. I think Florida goes Trump. I think Ohio goes Trump. I think the thing to watch is Arizona. And if Arizona, that would be one to watch, So if Biden were to win that, but then at the same time, he's still got to run the table in Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. He can't lose any four of those states, right? So it's kind of if here's the nightmare scenario, and this is one of my Republican pundits I listened to put up that I thought was great. Say, for instance, Trump does everything but loses Arizona, but wins Pennsylvania. You end up with a 249 electoral college. So now, where does it get thrown to? It gets thrown to the House of Representatives. And the way the way the House votes on this is not by sheer numbers, but by state.
Right.
So it's virtually a 50-50. So say, for instance, the House of Representatives gets turned into a 50-50 thing. They can't decide. And then the Senate is 50-50. And they can't decide who the vice president is going to be. That'll be good times right there.
Yeah.
we have that kind of deadlock. I don't think it's that close. I really hope we'll have a clear winner on election day. I think that'll be better for everybody because I think that what my fear initially was, a lot of the more left-leaning pundits were talking about, initially an apparent Trump victory, but then, 10 days or so after the election, we'd find out that, oh no, it was actually Biden. That there would be a bunch of unrest in reaction to an apparent Trump landslide type of idea. So I'll just put this to you. This is the question. One of the questions I've definitely been wanting to ask you is, if Trump wins, we saw people pretty much lose their ever-loving minds in 2016. Now we've got a lot more tension, a lot more strife, a lot more. What do you think's going to go on if Trump pulls out a W in this thing? And I think it's close. I think it's close.
Boy. Well, I think that there's, the militias, or I'd like to refer to them as terrorists, like we saw them yesterday with the Biden bus. They're going to be the winners. So they're not going to want to. I mean, they're going to want to celebrate in the streets or whatever, I suppose. I don't see a lot of mayhem out in the streets. I don't believe there's going to be a lot of Biden voters that are going to go to the streets to complain about Trump at that point. I mean, we put up with all that so far for 4 years. I'm not going to the streets with it. I'm going to have to rearrange my life to, so I can get through the next 4 years, which probably be pretty tough, to be honest with you. I think it's really going to, I mean, Trump has no plan. He's winging it from his hip all the time. I really don't know where he's going next. I mean, he's crushed all of our alliances with everybody. He wants to make this into wants to make us into a North Korea, and he's going to be the dictator with his family and keep passing it down or something, I guess. I mean, kind of where I'm at with him. I really don't know what his plan is. Every time somebody presses him for a plan, he comes out with a big book, hands it to him, then you flutter through the pages, and they're all empty. They're all just white with no ink on them. So I don't know. I don't. There's so many people out there too that are just real followers of him. But when you press the person and you ask them, I mean, you really look them in the eyes and ask, so what did Trump do for you? What legislation has he passed in the last 4 years? How did that help you? Or how did that help America? They fall flat because there's just nothing he's done. It's ridiculous how harm he's put to us and our allies and our trade, businesses. I mean, everybody wants to say, oh, he gave me a tax break. Didn't give me a tax break. My taxes were higher. So maybe somebody got a tax break. I don't know who that person was, but everybody I talk to, their taxes are higher now.